Hey, you're listening to the Riverdale podcast. This is episode number 76. My name is Jonathan. Welcome to lovely Riverdale, USA. This is a weekly Archie Comics fan podcast. We update every Saturday morning, and every week we break things down into 4 categories. The first category is the book of the week. That's the comic book I read this week. Sometimes it's a new comic book, sometimes it's an old comic book, but it's always an Archie comic book. We move then to the news of the week. That's what happened in the world of Archie in the week since our last podcast. We move then to new releases. That's what came out this past week from Archie Comics, what will be coming up this coming week from Archie. And we're going to wrap up the show this week with a little State of the Union address, a little State of the Podcast address. We're going to talk about the past and future of the podcast. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. That is what the episode looks like this week. It's like, blah, blah, blah. That is what the episode looks like this week. Let's get on to the book of the week. This week's book of the week is Archie Giant Series Magazine presents Little Archie. This is Giant Size Series number 566. And for those who aren't aware of the Giant Series, it started, I believe, in the 70s, and it ran, I guess, up until the 90s, I believe. But it has a strange publication history. It had a huge jump in numbering somewhere around the late 70s. And it was a long time before I understood really what the Giant Series was. Is sort of a catch-all book. It's a book that came out. It had, like I said, it had an odd publishing history. It had an odd publishing schedule, which we'll get to in a second. But when I went through and organized my Archie books recently, I realized that I had issues of the Archie Giant series all over the place because, like this one, starring Little Archie, is a full issue of Little Archie stories. I had this filed away with other Little Archie books. I had issues of the Giant series starring Little Jinx filed away with the Little Jinx. And I haven't quite decided whether I'm going to pull them out and try to put together a long run of Giant series or not. Anyway, this particular issue is from late 1986. It's a Christmas-themed issue, and it is cover dated January 1987. So it probably came out November or so of 1986. And I just recently moved and was looking for an issue to talk about in the show. Reached into a short box, pulled it out. First issue I came to. So it's an odd fit for this time of year, but I decided to stick with it as it was the first issue I grabbed, and I had committed to talking about the first issue I put my hands on. And super fun, a lot to talk about in here. Let's get into it. First of all, we have a great cover by Bob Bowling. Most of the issue is written and drawn by Bob Bowling, who at this point was 30 years into his career writing and drawing Little Archie since the 1950s, and did stories as recently as 2004, 2005, did the Free Comic Book Day issue back in, I think, 2004. That would be the most recent work he's done. He did another short story, I think, for each of the Little Archie collections that Archie put out around that same time, 2004, 2005. Bob Bowling, legendary dude in the history of Archie Comics. And on the cover, we have the little crew, the little Riverdale gang, about to launch Lil Ambrose into the air, and the attempt here is to launch him on this giant slingshot and launch him into Santa's sleigh, which is showing up. And Ambrose says to Little Archie, what if my parachute doesn't work? And Archie says, Ambrose, the important thing is to hand him our Christmas list once you get up there. It's a really good shot. There's a big moon in the background, and all the kids are smiling, and there's just giant sweat beads coming off of Ambrose. But as we get into this, the first thing I went down to check that this was in fact part of the Archie Giant magazine series. It is, and the publication dates of this are fantastic. It says, Archie Giant series magazine issue number 566, January 1987, published 11 times a year, once in June, twice in September and October, and 3 times in January and August. I don't know. I would love to get somebody on the show that can explain the history of this title. It's fantastic. But to get into the guts of the story, keep things moving, Little Archie in Land of the Lost. In this story, Archie, it's Christmas time. It's late in football season. They're about to have their big game against their rivals. And that is the sort of the backdrop of the story. And what happens is Reggie loses his watch, which he took off so it would be safe while he was playing football, and he can't find it. And all of the other kids are mentioning. Moose says, I had a wind-up robot that was broken, and I lost it, and when I found it later, it worked. And Betty has a similar story about roller skates. And we sort of leave that story behind when Archie has to rush home to be home by dark when his parents have asked him to be home, and he gets lost in the woods. And what he finds is a little, like, society of elves. He gets found by this elf who brings him into this little underground world of elves who are watching over the toys of Riverdale. And what they do is they find toys that have been discarded or left behind, and they fix them, and they put them back. And it's a neat story, and Archie, being the guy that he is, the elves feel totally comfortable inviting him in and telling him all of their secrets. And at the end of the story, Archie finds his way home, and he's going to bed at night, and his parents are tucking him in. And they say, oh, you lost your football. And he said, yeah, but I have the feeling that, it's going to be back in time for the game tomorrow. And the story ends with little Archie's parents seeming very confused that he's not concerned about his lost football. But he knows, of course, that the football will be returned better than he lost it, in better condition than when he had lost it, and returned by these great elves. Also, throughout the Bob Bowling stories in here, there are just amazingly, bad puns. I mean bad in the good sense. The worse the pun, the better the pun. But there's a point in this story where Archie is asking the elves how they actually get the toys or return the toys. And the elf says, crows, special courier crows. And Archie says, now I know the cause of the missing toys, cause, C-A-W-S. There are puns like that throughout all of these stories. I don't remember those from early Little Archie stuff that I've read from Bob Bowling. Maybe this was a later thing for him, but I love puns. I'm super into those. After the Land of the Lost story, we get a couple of short, a half-pager and a full-page gag, and these are written and drawn by Dexter Taylor. Dexter Taylor took over the title from Bob Bowling in the late 80s, I believe. He did some really, really good stuff. And he was a classic artist as well. I don't know a lot about his work. I had thought that he had been a later artist to come in. But I remember hearing Victor Gorlick talking about working with him back when he started at the company in the 50s. So definitely something I'm going to need to dig in and read about. The next lengthy story in this issue is entitled Orphans of the Storm. And in this, Miss Grundy and Mr. Weatherby are putting together this Christmas play, and all of the kids are in the play, and they're having a terrible time getting along with one another. And Mr. Weatherby piles them all into the van with the intention of taking them to a nearby school where they'll perform their Christmas play. And in the midst of getting there, it starts snowing, and they get trapped in a snowbank in front of all places, an orphanage. This orphanage is known as Bleakley's Orphanage, Bleakly, Bleakley. It is run by a Mr. Barnhouse Bleakley and his wife, Belinda Bleakley. And this is a pretty intense Christmas time cliche. The spoiled brat kids who can't get along showing up and learning that people are much less fortunate than themselves are having a great Christmas. So they go and perform the play for the orphans, and then the orphans help them push the van out, and they all get home for Christmas time. And the last panel is a really nice panel of all of the kids in the back of the van, and seen as a perspective looking into the windshield. And Mr. Weatherby is driving, of course. They're in the back seat, and they all shout, "Merry Christmas, Mr. Weatherby." And he says, "Merry Christmas, kids." And Bob Bowling does this rad sort of trademark thing where at the end of the story, he works the lower right half of the lower right half bit of the last panel. He'll work the panel borders right into the end. I guess it's hard to describe, but he does that in a lot of his stuff. Then we get a cool feature. It's a double-page thing, and it is Little Archie's mailboard. And this has letters that have been sent in from kids, drawings that have been sent in, jokes that have been sent in, and a big page of pen pals. Just kids' names, addresses, and age. And you can pick any one of these or all of these and send them letters. It's a really cool feature. I really like it. Moving along, the last story is written and drawn by Dexter Taylor. Awesome story. It's super, super good. I'm a total sucker for Christmas stories, and even here in the middle of August, this one was a total heartwarmer. Really simple premise, really, really fun. What happens is, this is Little Sabrina in The Magic Christmas Tree. Sabrina is hanging out on Christmas Eve with her aunts, and Aunt Zelda zaps up a Christmas tree for them as they've forgotten to get one. They zap it up. It is too big, so they snap off the top of it, and they throw it out the window. And Jughead comes along and sees the top of the tree, and he says, "Oh, this is gigantic. This is plenty big for my house." So he brings it home and finds that it's too big. So he chops off the top and gives it to Hot Dog. And Hot Dog takes the top of the tree and brings it into his doghouse and finds that it's too big and breaks off the top and gives it to some rabbits. And so on. The rabbits give it to mice, I guess. So you have give the top of this Christmas tree, which has been chopped off multiple times and is now with multiple families of dogs and rabbits and mice. And then Sabrina, as is customary, I guess, does the zap spell to decorate the Christmas tree, and she decorates not only her own tree, but all of the other pieces of that tree in all the other households throughout Riverdale. The tree gets decorated all at once. So it's a really sweet story. And we end the issue with a coloring page of Little Archie and all of his friends hanging out by the fireplace getting ready for Christmas. Cool issue. As I said, a little out of context here in the summertime, but nonetheless super fun. Never a bad time to read some great Bob Bowling and Dexter Taylor Little Archie stuff. So that is the book of the week. Archie Giant Series Magazine presents Little Archie, number 566 from January 1987. All right, Archie news, you guys. Big Archie news this week. First of all, we're going to start off over at the New York Post. Their Parallel Worlds blog had a talk with Dean Haspiel and Mark Waid and Paul Kaminsky about the upcoming Fox series. And there's some interior art. We haven't seen much interior art at all from that upcoming first issue. We're going to get that the end of October. October 30th is the release date for that one. So head over there. You definitely want to read about that. What I hadn't realized, and I'm not sure if this hadn't been publicized at all or whatever, is that Dean Haspiel actually went to Archie about doing the Fox series. He'd been a fan of the series back in the 80s during the Red Circle resurgence of the early 80s and went to them about doing the book and then brought in Mark Waid, who we had known for years and had never worked with. So there's a lot of backstory to that as to how it happened, and also, as I said, some great interior pages. Looks like it's going to be an awesome series. There are few things from Archie that I'm more excited about than the Fox coming up in October. So you'll definitely want to check out that article. Other exciting news of the week is the Archie's World Tour. This is a storyline that was just announced this week, starting with Archie number 650, which will be out in December. It's a 48-page, oversized special for the 650th issue of Archie, and it begins a 4-part storyline called Battle of the Bands. And cool stuff. This is going to be, as it states, a battle of the bands between the Archies, Josie and the Pussycats, the Madhouse Glads, and the Bingos. Now, those last two, of course, the Madhouse Glads were a staple of Madhouse comics back in the 60s. It was an Archie title. There's definitely a lot written about that. There's a great hardcover collection that came from IDW through their partnership with Archie that came out just a few years ago. So there's a lot of information about Madhouse out there. Definitely go check that stuff out. Also, the Bingos were the band of Bingo Wilkin, that Wilkin boy. So these are great old properties that are being brought back for this series. I'm really, really excited about it. That's going to be written and drawn by Dan Parent. We got to see the great variant cover by Fiona Staples that looks amazing. And Comic Book Resources announced that this week and gave us that great variant cover. And over at the Times of India, they took note of this story as there's a huge fan base of Archie in India, and as such, they have chosen to launch off this Archie Battle of the Bands World Tour in India. The 650th issue in which this story launches is going to take place in India. Dan Parent's cover for that issue features Archie romancing an Indian woman. It looks awesome. Also, in that article over in the Times of India, they mentioned that both Sabrina and Katie Keene will be featured in there. It was somewhere along that 4-issue storyline. Really excited about that. He said there's going to be some surprise characters along the way. I can't wait for this. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. And I guess that is the news of the week. To recap, over at the New York Post's Parallel Worlds blog, they had a great talk with Dean Haspiel about the Fox. Over at Comic Book Resources, they announced the Archie Worlds Tour with the Fiona Staples variant cover. And the Times of India talked to John Goldwater and Dan Parent about the upcoming Battle of the Bands World Tour storyline. Head over to RiverdalePodcast.com. We'll have links to all of those stories. You'll definitely want to check them out. New releases for this past Wednesday are as follows. Archie and Friends Double Digest number 30 for $3.99, and the Best of Archie Comics Volume 3 for $9.99. Best of Archie Comics Volume 3 looks terrific. I took a little flip through there, and that's set up just like the prior books, goes through by decade and gives you some great highlights and stories specifically chosen by the staff of Archie Comics. And what is really notable is when you get to the end of the book, there's some modern classics, if you will. There's some Tanya Del Rio, Sabrina stuff. There is Jughead number 200. Awesome. That's a terrific issue I talked about recently. And also you've got the Giselle, Tanya Del Rio, Riverdale storyline that came out last summer. You've got that issue packed in there. Best of Archie Volume 3 looks amazing. Coming up next week, Wednesday the 21st of August, we are going to get Betty and Veronica number 267 for $2.99. Sonic Super Digest number 4 for $3.99. That's awesome. Sonic Universe number 55 for $2.99, and World of Archie number 31 for $3.99. Be on the lookout both Sonic Universe number 55 and Betty and Veronica number 267 have variant covers. Be on the lookout for those. As of now, it seems like there's no big digital releases this week over on the digital side of things. But all of Archie's comics are released day and date, so you'll be able to get the new issues over there. No exclusives this week, it doesn't look like, but always keep an eye out. Those tend to pop up when you least expect it. So those are your new releases for this past Wednesday, the 14th, this coming Wednesday, the 21st, and your digital releases for the week from Archie. Finally today, I wanted to check in and talk a little bit about the podcast. Last week, obviously, we reached our 75th episode. It was a bit of a milestone. And every 25 episodes, on the 25th episode and the 50th episode, I just did a little check-in to talk about where we're headed, where we've been, all of that stuff. And I've been really, really happy with how the show's been going, the reaction that I'm getting. Obviously, since the 50th episode, I've done a bunch of interviews with folks related to Archie Comics. Those have been super fun. People have reacted really strongly to those. Everybody seems to like it, and I do have more of those planned. So I'm excited to get back into the swing of doing more interviews and doing them more regularly. I have some other projects in the works which I hesitate to mention yet until they're really off the ground, but there's a lot of fun stuff coming up with the show itself. With Archie Comics in general, I feel like there's so much exciting stuff coming just a few months down the line. Of course, as we already talked about in the episode, Dean Haspiel and Mark Waid on the Fox. I'm really, really thrilled about that. I can't say enough about the Afterlife with Archie that's coming up, the Francesco Francavilla artwork that's coming up from that, and the various variant covers that are coming up. Super, super exciting. I'm hoping to get some folks on to talk about that as it gets closer. And something we haven't talked about as much as we should be is the Sabrina animated series that's launching this fall. I don't have a set release date for that. I keep checking the internet to see exactly when that's going to premiere. But I really am super, super excited to see what they do with Sabrina in this new animated series. Of course, we're going to have movie news trickling out over the next year. We're going to have more news about that great animated series that was announced a couple of weeks ago that was very polarizing. And there's a lot of stuff to be excited about with Archie, and I think there's going to be a lot of stuff to talk about. And I definitely want to get all of you involved in the show. If there are things that you would like to have more of in the show or less of in the show, any input that you have, I would really appreciate. Obviously, I wouldn't be doing the show if nobody was listening, and it's really you guys that keep me excited about doing the show and keep the shows fresh every week, is knowing that you guys are enthused about listening to them every Saturday morning. So I guess that's it. It's been a great few months since the 50th episode. I'm excited about our new partnership with First Comics News. Episodes are going up there every week. New listeners are coming in to check things out. And like I said, excited about doing more interviews, excited about upcoming storylines and new series that are launching. And I really can't thank you guys enough for listening and contributing and being part of the show. So thanks, guys. Downloading and listening to the show is a great way to support the show. And if you'd like to take things a little bit further, do me a favor, head over to riverdalePodcast.com and click on that link for TFAW, Things from Another World. It'll pop right up once you get to the website. Click on that, head over to Things from Another World, and browse their huge selection of Archie comics. And beyond that, every other comic that you could be looking for. They carry everything that you see in the previews catalog, everything that's coming from Diamond. So you can shop a huge selection of graphic novels, single issues, statues, whatever you're looking for. They've got it at Things from Another World. So if you head over to riverdalePodcast.com and click that link, a percentage of anything you buy is going to go to support the show. So that's a great way to get your books, get them shipped to you, get a great deal, 20, 30, 40, sometimes 50% off books, and support the show at the same time. So thanks for considering that. On the way out today, I want to remind everyone to head over to RiverdalePodcast.com. There you're going to find links to like the show on Facebook, follow the show on Twitter, subscribe to the show on iTunes. You'll find links at RiverdalePodcast.com to all of the news stories we discussed in the news portion of the show. You'll see the great Bob Bowling cover to Archie Giant Series Magazine, number 566, we talked about at the top of the show. You'll also find links to all of the past creator interviews, all of the past episodes, right there on the website. Also, we have partnered with FirstComicsNews.com. They're posting episodes every Monday, so head over to First Comics News for all of your comics news. Check out all of the podcasts and columns that are going on there. I think that's going to do it for this week. I think that wraps it up. Thanks for hanging with me. Another long episode this week, but we'll wrap it up here. Thanks so much for listening. Again, my name is Jonathan, and I'll see you again next week here in lovely Riverdale, USA.